All right, what is up, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Help Me Understand podcast. I'm your host, Coach JK McLeod, and we are going to get straight into today's episode where I want to take a few minutes here because I am on a fairly tight timeline. I wanted to get this out as quickly as I could while it's front of mind for me on what I believe is an underrated or often overlooked sign that something is becoming a habit. This is crazy because I believe that it pretty much just clicked for me yesterday, and I've been thinking about it since yesterday. So I was like, well, let me go ahead and get this recorded. And I was thinking, let me just drop this in the Fitness Foundations community. However, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to drop it as a podcast and just pretend that I'm talking to the folks that are in the community. What I'm not going to skip, though, even though we're going to jump right into things, is first taking a moment to express gratitude. As always, I want to say thank you for choosing to press play on the Help Me Understand podcast in a absolute sea ocean universe of podcast content that can consume. I don't take it for granted that you chose to press play on Help Me Understand. So thank you for that. All right, so let's jump into this. Where this is being inspired by, as far as this idea that there potentially is an underrated or overlooked sign that may be happening right now in your life, that something has become a habit. It came from a reel that I was watching from E.T. the Hip Hop Preacher, also known as Eric Thomas. And in this particular reel, he's playing some footage of the Detroit Lions. If you have any understanding of what the history has looked like of the Detroit Lions football team, they have been, it's not even an understatement to say that they've been piss poor awful for a very long period of time. And as he's playing some snippets of the Detroit Lions in the background, he's talking about the idea of expecting to win. And why this connects with the Detroit Lions is because they have been awful for as long as I can remember. Pretty much their only highlight for a period of time was Barry Sanders, one of the best running backs in the NFL. And many folks believe that he retired early because the Detroit Lions sucked so bad. Now, if there's any of my friends that I went to Michigan State with who are listening to this right now and are hurt somewhat by that comment, you also know that it's true. And actually, my best friend is a Detroit Lions fan. He knows it's true too. However, in the last few years, they have had a complete shift in the culture of the team, and it started with a change in ownership. So owned by the same family, I believe. However, different members of the family have now taken over. They bring in a different general manager who brings in a completely different staff, and especially a different head coach who is just an absolute all-out dog. And when I say dog, I mean D-A-W-G, dog, Dan Campbell. So this is not about the Detroit Lions, though. This is about being inspired by this story of a team that went into games just either hoping not to lose or hoping not to completely get blown out. I mean, that was basically what it is. And if you are someone who either has played sports yourself, have kids who have played or currently play sports, I'm in that boat right now, you can for sure relate to times, unless you have just lived an absolute dynasty your entire life, which that's fantastic. I love that for you. However, many of us have some either personal or tangential experience in this phase where you're on a team, or maybe you're an individual contributor and you understand kind of where you're at with things. Maybe you're newer to that particular sport. Maybe it's a team that's just kind of thrown together. Maybe you just understand that, this is just, the culture is just kind of not great. And you would go into games or tournaments just hoping not to lose, or hoping, like if it's baseball, you're just hoping you don't get run ruled. You're hoping that you just kind of get through it, right? And then at some point, hopefully you've been able to experience this. I've watched this experience with both of my kids. Just there starts to be this shift when you get the right leadership in place and you get the right practice habits and you get people of good character in place. There starts to be this shift of, it's no longer just trying to play to hope you don't lose. It's you actually expect to win. And I started thinking about this in terms of habits, and I think that there absolutely is a parallel there. I think that many times we can start with particular habits that we want to put in place. They're things that we hope go a certain way. Like, I hope that I get my workouts in this week. I'm really hoping that I can eat better, or it's more of a defensive strategy. I'm just trying not to overeat, or I hope that I can get to bed on time. But at some point, if you've been consistent, it starts to shift from and it starts becoming, this is what I do. I expect this to happen. So again, drawing that parallel from when you may have been on a team where it was, well, I just hope I don't lose, with we expect to win. And one of the reasons, or some of the reasons that you expect to win, is because it's something that you have practiced. You've been through a lot of trial and error. You've put systems around. So it's no longer people just show up to practice when they want. There's an actual like structure to your practice. There's maybe even uniforms. Like, a lot of times with sports teams, that can change really the culture of a team with just bringing some uniformity to things. There's an appreciation of some of the different things that are going on in aspects of different characteristics of team members and things like that. And I see habit formation much the same way. So some few things that I think start to happen when you are making that shift from, I hope that these happen, to, this is just what I do, and I expect that I will get these things done and I will execute. What happens is you begin to plan your workout, or you begin planning around, okay, I'm going to get this workout in. So in order for me to get my workout in, I'm going to plan that for 7 a.m. That means that I need to make sure that these other items are also taken care of so that my workout gets done. So you basically begin to plan around your workout, not trying to just squeeze it in. You also know, from a nutrition standpoint, let's say you go into a restaurant and you know what you're ordering before you see the menu. That is something that takes intention. And also, it's a matter of, previous you may have been like, yeah, I'll just wing it. I know they'll have something. And I'm certainly not going to say that every single restaurant has like their menu online. Many of them do, though. Let's not get it twisted. And you can at least get a general idea. And when you start to look at menus ahead of time and get an idea of, okay, where can I get a really protein rich plate to start off with? What sort of veggie choices are there available? And use that as the center of your meal. That's when you know that something is really starting to become a habit. I think that far too often we believe that the only ways to look at something being a habit is if we've done it a certain number of times in a row, if we've completely stopped doing the adverse behavior that we're looking for not to happen, the intensity of how we may do something. And while I do agree that those for sure are signs that you are potentially on the right path with habit formation, I believe that this particular mindset, or this way of really thinking about things, where you're starting to put these things down, not as, and when I say put them down, I mean like write them on your list or plan them in your day, not as, I hope I get these things done. Kind of similar again, like, I hope I just don't lose control of the day. These are things that you're putting down because that's just what I do. Like, I just expect that that's going to happen because this is something that has now become a habit. I think about this in terms of sleep, especially when you are starting to make progress with forming pretty solid sleep habits and really starting to wind down at the end of the night, you start to notice a shift. It could perhaps be that instead of picking up your phone when you lay in the bed, you now pick up a book. It could be that instead of turning the TV on when you get in the bed, you possibly pop on some headphones and you listen to something that's a bit more soothing. Those are things where it's just, okay, I notice that I'm starting to do these things because it's just what I do now. And it's part of the overall picture of when you were going throughout your day, you're like, well, I just expect that I'm going to wind down this way at the end of the night. So I think, again, that can be something that's really subtle, but I believe that they're also really, really powerful. So it's not about creating these routines that are absolutely perfect and you never miss. I mean, I'm all about For some people, streaks, I know is a tactic that I've used with folks and other folks use it themselves. That can be really good for some people. Then for some folks, it can be about just overall frequency, like not missing more than one day of something in a row, different things like that. And also, it when that shift happens and you truly just start going into the day with, I expect that I'm going to get my workout done. I expect that I'm going to defer to choosing water prior to any other thing that I might drink. I expect that around 9 o'clock, I'm going to start shutting things down. I expect that when I sit down to eat a meal, I'm not automatically pulling up my laptop or pulling up a screen, my phone to look at as I eat. I'm actually eating mindfully. Like these are the things that when you just notice, like, oh, I just kind of expect that these are the things that I do. That I believe is such an underrated and overlooked shift in your habit formation process. So hopefully this hits with someone. If it did happen to hit with you, if it happened to impact you, or you think it's something that could potentially also impact someone else, I'd really appreciate it if you shared it with them. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up today's episode. If you've listened to this long, then thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Help Me Understand podcast. Take care, and I'll talk to you next time.